Hi everyone, Diane here, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing something, but I don't know what. How about that? Sorry about the plaster, I cut myself while I was cooking. I wanted to talk about a few things that you might find interesting. This book, you will probably remember, I recommended people to have a go with a while ago, and when I was looking at it the other day to see how much more I had to do in it, I checked on the date, and the first time I entered into this book was on the 25th of June 2022. So we are now into the second year of working on this book, and it was quite funny because having sort of glanced at the information at the beginning, I started on this page, and I didn't know how the paper was going to work with watercolor or water mediums. So I was very kind of hesitant about it, and that's what I did. And then on the next page, I picked up a fine line, a very fine point, and I drew something that was sitting in the studio very delicately. And then after that, we started to go a little bit wild, and I got the idea that you could use pretty much anything on this paper. It doesn't feel very sturdy, but it actually stands up quite well. This is coloured pencil. Mostly this row of trees, and there's ink here and watercolor brushes, brush pens, acrylic pens, all sorts of things. And I just wanted to flip through this with you before we start doing our painting for today, because in my former habit was, in the past, when I wanted to paint something and didn't know what to paint, I would pick up my art instruction books. This was before internet happened. And I would look through them and see if I could see something that I fancied. And that was a bit limiting, really, because what that meant was that I tended to be stuck with landscapes, very simple landscapes. There's one a bit like yesterday's video, actually, which I just did in that small space there in response to the prompt, which I completely ignored. I actually have gone through this totally ignoring the prompts, and I want to encourage you to do that, actually. On this page here, she said, create an alphabet or typeface using natural forms. Perhaps it's an alphabet of animal shapes, flowers or leaves. No interest in doing that whatsoever. So I just drew some whimsical birds. And this one, it says, nature is everywhere, even when you're in a city. Note down some ideas of where you might find nature in the city. Think about lakes, rivers, trees, and birds. So I ignored the beginning of that. I'm not interested in drawing cities, not interested in drawing buildings at all. So I just painted a pond and put a boat on it. So there we are. And this one I did continue. She put this here and she said, continue this simple pattern. And I did that. So I quite like working with patterns. This one, I did what she said, and I made a colour wheel. Anyway, to go back to what, I don't know what happened under there. I think because I bought this second-hand, somebody had started under there, so I had to stick paper on top. I can't quite see what I did. I think this is what I stuck on. Yeah, that was what I did, and this is what I stuck on. Butterflies, didn't quite finish that. Anyway, what I was going to say was I recommend actually starting a book like this, and these are really good for that. And then when you don't know what to paint and you're trying to think of an idea, then instead of going to the printed books, things like this, for example, which is not a bad book. It's not bad at all. It has things in it, but it has a lot of blank space. I mean, this is a page and it's not very inspiring, is it? And so is this, and so is this. Nothing in it. When you make your own book, you'll be amazed at what will come out of your head when there's no pressure. When you just pick this up and you say, well, I don't know if I want to do what you say there, but I'm going to just do something. And you'll be amazed at the things that you produce. Well, I am anyway, quite amazed by what I do. I've reorganized the planet there into a different set of land masses and so on. That's, I feel like Slarty Bart fast there. And so, study a picture of a lion. Look at the shape of the, not interested in that not interested in that, so I haven't done it. But this was coffee beans, quite like that, or seeds. Do you see what I'm saying? Anyway, this I did as a collage. I stuck some bits of tissue paper on there. And the thing is, it gets you started. So what you can do is you can just kind of flip through like this. Actually, it's interesting because last night, I'm getting quite close to the end, and I could bore you to tears by going through all this slowly. It's not boring for me, of course, because I did it, and everyone has an ego, and you think to yourself, oh, look, aren't I clever? Look what I did. Yes. But I quite like this, don't you? I think that's quite fun. Maybe we'll do that today. So perhaps we'll do something like that. Perhaps that's what we'll do, because I want to, I'll just show you what I did. The last thing I did, often I find I just pick this up just before I go to bed, and I just do a page or two, and I'm getting quite close to the end. I did these two dogs. I looked at some photos on Tinternet. These are the ones that she did, and these are the ones that I did. And I'm not saying that they're brilliant or anything, but I wouldn't have ever drawn a dog if it hadn't been for this. This is interesting too. Draw as many birds as you can think of. Well, I've drawn so many birds, but I decided to have a look at my John Law's book, Drawing Birds, this one, John Muir Law's, and I opened it up more or less at random, and it came to the page where he shows you the skeleton of the bird that is under the feathers. So I thought I would try and copy that, and that's quite interesting because you can see that the real bird looks like a little dinosaur, and it's all hiding behind all of its lovely feathers and everything, which is quite fun. So I did that. And then we've got, I don't know, there's about another 20, up to about 300. So actually we've got about another 60 pages to go. So yeah, anyway, so there's that. When I've finished that, I'm going to move on to the next one, which was, I think, the first one that she did, which is 365 Days of Art. And this is very similar. It's just not so nature-based, but of course you can give it a nature twist. This is also secondhand. So this is a drawing that somebody else did, which I can rub out. I can erase that, you see. So if you don't want to spend the money and you can get one secondhand, there's only a few pages in here that have been used. I think people buy these as presents and they lose interest really quickly when they, it is easy to lose interest in this. And I can imagine that there must be more lying around, incomplete, uncompleted. These pages I've done. At the beginning of this one, because it was secondhand, there were some pages that I couldn't do anything about. So I've just stuck an extra piece of paper in and redid the pages. So I've basically repaired it. Anyway, so yeah, I had to repair this page. I had to repair this page and this page. But as it goes through, I think whoever had it, I did about 20 pages, and then it's all basically up for grabs. So anyway, that's the one I'm going to do next. So let's see what we're going to do today. Maybe, I don't know whether to do something structured or something really loose, and it's always difficult to know what to do. But let's talk about paint. I'm going to use this set. This is my Paul Rubens 5th generation tube set. It has 36 colours. These are tiny little tubes, 5mm tubes. This is not an expensive set by any means. And the way that I usually work with this is to get myself a fairly large palette, squeeze out the colours that I think I'm going to use, and then mix my colours in the middle. So I'm going to do that today. If I do that, then I'm going to be producing probably something much looser than I would if I just paint from little pans. the little pans do tend to be fairly inhibiting as far as I'm concerned anyway, because I do like to, you know, splash things around a bit. So I'll set that up in a minute and come back to that. Meanwhile, I'm just going to talk about paper briefly. You know that we use Meaden paper here quite a lot. And this is a pad which I had forgotten that I had. I need a pair of scissors or something to open it with. I just realised this is a size that I haven't used before. This is 15 by 11 inches. And I put a link in the description below to take you direct to that size, because on their website it says 15 by 10. So that's not what it is. When you click on 15 by 10, you see the listing, which has got 15 by 11, but they've done it squashed so it looks smaller and the proportions look different, because this is just a little bit bigger than the one we normally use, the biggest one that we normally use, which is 12 by 9. Okay, so this is more sort of rectangular. It has a 3 by 4 ratio, and this one is 11 by 15, which doesn't actually break down any further than that. So that's longer and, you know, lower, sort of more longer. So anyway, I'm going to open it up. And while I'm doing this, I wanted to say that for those of you who are members of the YouTube channel, and you're paying anything from $4 a month upwards to be a member, and I know a lot of you do that just because you want to support us, and that's great, because we need your support, your financial support. But we are in the process of adding some new perks, which are going to be some short, like 15-minute videos about different things to do with learning watercolor. And the first one is about water, and that's up ready for you already, private for members only, if you go to YouTube, and you will find it. And then the next one is going to be paper, which is in preparation at the moment. And then after that, we're going to do brushes and then paint, and then we'll start doing some paintings and things. So just to let you know, if you are a member, go and check that out. And there will be a link to that also in the description below. So here is your little opening here where you can slide your knife in to separate the page when you've done the painting. Meanwhile, you do need to take off the green sheet, which conceals the paper. And this is cold press. It does feel fairly rough, actually. This has got quite a lot of texture, that has. So we're going to think of doing something that is actually going to benefit from the texture. I can't get that off. Come on, thank you. Right, give me a minute and I'll set up the palette and come back to you. We'll actually go and find a palette so that I can put the paints out. Okay. So this is my set. This is the Rubens 36, and I have found my palette, which I've got all the colours already out on, and what I need to do now is wet them. So I need a bottle of water, a spray bottle, and I'm just going to spray all of these paints. They're absolutely bone dry. They've been sitting there. I haven't used this palette for quite a long time, actually, because I have been, well, first of all, I was abroad, and for 6 weeks I painted from a small paint tin, basically, which you probably remember. And then we had Christmas, and I was using, again, a lot of colours that, you know, like golds and things that you wouldn't necessarily find in a set like this. But anyway, so I'm reactivating them. Now, just to reassure you, this is perfectly possible, even though it's absolutely rock hard. You only need to spray it with water. Well, actually, first of all, I did clean it. I dusted it off and made sure that there wasn't any dirt on it, because it had been sitting on an open shelf for a while. And now I'm going to find a brush, and then I'm going to put some colour on some paper. And I'm going to use, like I said, this 15 by 11. And I don't know whether I'm going to do it landscape or whether I'm going to, I think I'll do it this way because it fits onto the camera a little bit more easily. I'm just going to raise my camera up a bit, like that. And brushes, because this is a reasonably big piece of paper, 11 by 15, probably going to want to use a reasonably big brush. And I have here my Drawell brushes. This is probably my biggest Drawell, which is a 14. And I've also got the Drawell Maestro. Biggest one I've got, I think, is an 11, and that's not it. Yeah, that's the 11. So I've got an 11, a 9, and a 14 there, which would be fine, I should think. And at the moment, I have no idea what I'm going to do. So let's put this to one side a bit and let's see how we can make this work. Of course, that's the other reason why I tend not to use this arrangement, because it's hard for you to see what I'm doing. But I think we might have to go up a bit further still. That's probably just about, yeah, that should work, shouldn't it? So we'll fold that back. Today is the 3rd, I think, or 4th of January, and the sun has finally come out. Hooray. We've had, I don't know how many weeks of grey weather, and finally the sun's come out. So that's a relief, and so I'm going to try and reflect that a little bit in my painting, but I'm not quite sure how at the moment. Okay, so as I look out of the window, I can see a pale blue sky, lots of leafless trees, lots of little birds. There's grass, and there's an azalea, a rhododendron that's in flower, which is a bit crazy because it's January. So maybe we'll just, I don't know, use that as inspiration and start to do some kind of a background. But that's green. That's turquoise. That's transparent turquoise we've got there, and cobalt turquoise. Nice colours. Normally we start with a blue, like cobalt blue, something like that. And you think to yourself, oh, it's going to be awful because I'm just going to put colour on this page. And indeed I am. And I'm not going to worry about it too much, but I am going to sit down. Let's just play with colour, shall we? We buy these paints, you know, and I realised how often you buy these things and you don't open them, you just let them sit there. Sadly. What was it yesterday? Was it a box of chocolates? I said to Tamsin, I must open this. What was it? Oh, I can't remember. But you know what I mean. It's very easy to, I'll keep that for best. I've had items of clothing that I have literally ended up giving to a charity shop, never having worn, because it was being kept for best. And then, I don't know, you get too old to want to wear a certain thing, and you end up giving it away, or you get thinner or thicker. And you just don't like it anymore. You never wore it. It's tragic. If you The alarm just went off on my phone, so that's confused me, and I can't remember what I was going to say, but something along the lines of if you, and I've forgotten what it was. Yeah, so just, you know, benefit from the wonderful pigments that we have nowadays, which is just fantastic. And things aren't that expensive, so there's no reason not to enjoy the colour. And you don't know what you're going to create if you allow yourself to just paint. Don't try and control everything. My God, you can't control anything these days, so why bother? And what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to go over this wonderful sheet of paper. It's really very nice paper. It's very forgiving. It doesn't do lots and lots of back runs and things like that. I don't know how they're making this paper, because I'm just literally putting the colour on, and I'm pretty sure that in the past with paper that I've used before, you would get all sorts of horrible effects. So we're letting intuition and just, let's put a bit more green in there. Just whatever takes your fancy, really. And I don't know what I'm going to do over the top of this. Maybe I'll do some tree branches and things like that, perhaps. I don't know if I want to go for something lighter down here, sort of make it into, I don't know, that's kind of not really lighter, is it? But there are some very beautiful blends of colours going on here as they just smoosh into one another, where you put the yellow down and you get this interesting effect. And after you've finished spoiling this piece of paper, you could turn it upside down and work on it the other way up, you know. Turquoise tends to have quite a bit of pigment in it, so you get these interesting spidery sorts of effects, whereas this quinacridone violet or whatever is quite different. So I'll try and make that blend in a bit better. Yeah, my alarm just went off, which I'd set for an hour, telling me that the bread that's rising in the kitchen needs to be seen to. I've got a hair there. That's probably from one of the dogs or the cats. I'm just going to lift some of that violet out a bit, and hopefully the paper will behave itself. Okay, well, I'm going to let that dry, and I will come back in an hour or so, and we'll see what we're going to do with it. And like I say, you might want to turn it round, or you might want to use it this way. Who knows? But anyway, we'll leave that to dry and come back shortly. I do like blue, don't you? Okay, so this is now completely dry, and it's kind of making me think about underwater and that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over the top of these colours with greens and try to kind of allow different shapes and colours to come up. So this is completely experimental. I have really not much idea what's going to happen. So I'm just picking up wodges of green and spreading it out more or less at random. I think we'll just see what happens. It's just very sensual and satisfying to do this just with pure colour. And the colours underneath, you know, the yellows and the blues that I put there in the first place, will shine through and enhance what I'm putting now on this second layer. And if you do something like this, you'll find that as you do it, you'll develop ideas about what it means to put a transparent veil of colour over the colour underneath. And if it's completely dry underneath, it won't lift, so it'll stay there. And you could do it differently. You could do it with circles of colour. You know, you could come in like that, and you could sort of put a darker one in the centre, like this. That would give you a somewhat different effect. And you could drop something in like that. Oops, that's my empty coffee cup. And then if you fill the whole paper with various different shapes and strokes, different folks for different strokes, I'm going to have to move that. I'm going to end up painting coffee. And we can do really dark. This is a dark blackish down here. So now we have that completely covered, and you could, I don't know, we could lift certain parts. I'll tell you what we could do. What I feel like I would like to do is take a tissue like this and then just wipe out some areas. Some leaves, for example. Or they could be flowers. Yeah, this is fun. And then we could put some, well, I don't think we'll do it with that, but I could take a brush. It's what you call a thirsty brush, where you clean it, dry it off, and then you can lift up the paint underneath your brush, I mean. Just going to give us a kind of, I don't know, what do you call it? A sort of mysterious. And then I think really, probably be a good idea to dry it with a hairdryer and see what happens. I've got here an acrylic Artex marker. And I'm going to do some dots in various places. And you know why? Because I quite like doing dots like this. Sorry about the background noise. I think it's the air conditioning blowing. Okay. All right, that's the first idea. And then I think I'm going to, first, in a second, I'm going to go and feed the birds. So I'll just do this. And one here. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop for a second and I'll be back in 2 ticks. Okay, so the birds are fed. And now I'm thinking it is actually looking a bit like an underwater scene. So I'm thinking maybe I will put, using a brush, some nice sort of weed, I suppose, leaves. And I'm just mixing, what am I mixing there? Cobalt turquoise and brown umber. That is, brown umber being a very dark brown, almost black. And I'm just letting the brush do the deciding as to what the paint is going to do. That's quite fun, sort of just taking the brush, pressing down a little bit to make it go thicker, and then maybe springing back up to get it pointed like that. And maybe quite fun to kind of just go through one of your little patches of white dots, something like that. I'm quite happy with that, really. And I mean, these little white dots, I think they remind me of bubbles in the undersea environment. You could stop there if you wanted to, or you can carry on. Let me think. You could take a pen, a gold pen. I think I need to dry it first, though. Let me dry that. I'm going to use a gold pen to do some sort of plants. And this one is, what is this? This is an acrylic marker. I don't know whether this is going to work. That might work. Or I've got a gold Sharpie. I'm not sure whether that will work. Or we have a Slicky. Which might work. Or there are loads of other things. Maybe, for example, in my gold thing, I've got, could use a Mab one. These are quite nice actually, but I do need a relatively small brush to do it if I'm going to do it with a brush. So we'll just soften this up a bit. It takes a little bit longer to use paint than it does to just grab a pen, doesn't it? But we want it reasonably thick, I think, so I think this one is probably the best. Yeah. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do, but I think I'll probably just do some little sets of leaves. Something like that, maybe. And of course, the gold shows up better on the darkest areas, so you might want to put one down here. And you probably want to sort of let them go behind some of the darker ones. That gives you a bit more of a sense of depth. And it's a good idea to make sure that they don't all go in the same direction. Did I just say that twice? Anyway. And yeah, it's definitely the case that they show up better when you find a little bit of a painting that's darker. So that one's going that way. And if we're going to go over here, we need to come down this way. There's nothing more satisfying than doing something like this. In a way, because it can't really go wrong. And this one, I'm going to come up here. Because you're making it up as you go along. And nobody can say to you, oh, that doesn't really look like a boat. It's very cold here today. So I think I mentioned it at the beginning, it's actually stopped raining, which is good, but it's freezing now. And we've had to put the heating on in the chicken barn because we've got three little hens who are they've been rescued. We rescued them from a fate worse than death, otherwise known as death. They don't have very many feathers. So, ideally, they would probably be indoors. Well, they are, but indoors is a barn, and we've blocked up all the holes that we could find where the wind was blowing through. We put a new roof on the barn last spring. When was it? It's probably less than a year ago, actually. Last summer, I think. Had to have a complete new roof on the chicken barn. €5,000. We had to have it done because, the storm blew the roof off. That would have been last October the 31st, 2023. I'm going to put some little dots now. We had the worst storm certainly in living memory. And the countryside around here still looks really sad because there's so many trees that are smashed up after the storm. It was terrible. So I'm just putting in some gold on top of some of the dark areas. Some circles, some little circles. You can call them bubbles if you like. And just do one or two over this side. You could put gold on the insides of these leaves if you feel that way inclined. You could put black or grey on the inside of some of them too if you wanted to, or silver even. I wonder what silver would look like. So there's that. And we could put tiny dots on these leaves if you wanted to. If you feel that they're a little too solid. Just using the very tip of the paintbrush. Or you could use a sticky pen or something like that, something with a small point. Don't want to do it on all of them. And do them in different ways and so on and so forth. So that's that. And Well, I think we've covered most of the paper there, haven't we? What do we think of that? Is that enough? Does that look a bit like the sea? These shapes could be turned into fish if you wanted to, or you could put fish in the background, make it a little bit more complicated. But I think probably that will do for now. Yeah, well, that was a relaxing period of time. I think it was quite a long period of time that I spent doing that. But I think I'm going to leave it like that because I quite like it. And you've got the colour that you put down first showing through on the whole thing. You know, you've got your yellow up here and your blue down here. So you've got that balance between the two different colours and the tension of the contrasting colour, the mauve here against the yellow, complementary colours. And down here, the turquoise and the very dark green. Nice contrasts. It's quite fun, actually. Yeah, I could add a few more dots and bits and pieces, but that's, you know, that's also enough. We could have some nice straight lines coming through if we wanted to. You could have a different kind of background leaf pattern. You could make these into more plants. You could do the whole thing, make the whole thing much more complex. But, you know, often less is more. And I think this is a case where this is enough. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to let you go. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications. That's very important if you want to be told when a new video goes up. And don't forget to click on the join button and go ahead and join our YouTube membership, because if you belong to the membership, you're going to get some extra perks, which I was talking about earlier on. So that would be great. We would love your support as we go into 2025, and we're still growing, so that's all good stuff. Hope you have a lovely time having a go at this, and I will see you again soon. So I'll say bye-bye for now, and take care, everybody. Bye for now.